So how do we get that file onto this panel? That's the biggie. So what we're going to do is, right now on my particular laptop, I'm on a live internet connection. And if you remember, during our previous session, we turned on our panel for the first time. We configured the Raspberry Pi to be a Wi-Fi access point, and we could have our laptop connect to its Wi-Fi connection so that we can change it, view it, upload things to it, that kind of stuff. So your panel should be turned on already. Okay, you should have a power light on it and turned on. And once you have it turned on, give it about a minute or two to warm up. And then after you've waited a couple minutes, look at your Wi-Fi connections on your laptop with that icon down by the clock. You'll see all the different Wi-Fi access points that it sees in this area. And I called my LCD panel, on the Wi-Fi network, I called it FPP-COM. That's the Wi-Fi network I want to connect to in order to make changes to this. So if I just hit connect, it's going to do two things. It's going to break off my Wi-Fi connection to the room I'm in here at this building, which means I have no internet access right now. And that's going to connect to the Wi-Fi network that's being offered by this LCD panel. So whenever I'm working with this panel, just keep in mind, I'll have no internet access until and when I'm finished updating this, I can reconnect to my regular Wi-Fi connection to get back on the internet. So it looks like it's taken a minute to connect to the panel, and it's connected now. You'll notice here's the name of my panel, the Wi-Fi network. It says no internet secured. That's normal. That means that this panel does not get onto the internet in any way, shape, or form. I'm connected to it through Wi-Fi, but it's not offering any internet services, which is fine by me. And because it says disconnect, that means I'm currently connected. So if you see a disconnect button, that means it's good. That means you're on. So how do we get to that panel to make changes to it? If I open up a web browser, let me just open up a fresh copy of Chrome here. You remember during the first training session, or the session before this one, that we have to type in the IP address of that panel to find it on the Wi-Fi network. And we explained all that on the previous session. So I know that for my particular panel, if I go to IP address 192.168.8.1, that's how I can get to this from within a web browser. And that previous session told you some other numbers you can type in case this one doesn't work for you. So when I go to that IP address, there's my Falcon player interface. And again, we talked about this during the previous session. This is how we configured Falcon player to understand how to talk to that LCD panel. Or LED panel. So what we're going to do is, in Xlights, we had that .fseq file that has our animation that we want to put onto this panel. So we need to upload that file into Falcon Player. And you do that through the Content Setup menu right here. So if I click on that menu, we have an option here called File Manager. So click on that. And just give it a minute because it's just a little slow. You'll see a little animation icon. There it is. And so there's our File Manager screen right here. And you have different categories of files you can upload. You can upload animations or sequences right here. You can upload music. You can upload video clips. You don't need to worry about these categories. It'll automatically put your files into the proper category as you upload it. So you do not need to click on these, you don't have to click on these individual categories before you hit the select files below. It'll put everything in the right place. So all you do is hit the blue select files button right here at the bottom. And then you have to find where that fseq file was saved to your computer. So in my case, remember that Xlight the show folder, that's within my documents folder. And then there's a folder here called My Show. That's where I defined my show folder. And then there's my animation files right there, these two. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, these two right here. These three. There's actually three now. Do you see that? Before I told you about two of them, but now there's three. So the XSQ file is the one that I can use to make changes in the future to my animations if I want to improve them. The one that's XBKP, that's a backup file of that animation file. So Xites creates that automatically in case there's a program crash, so you don't lose all your work. So that one you can ignore. But the FSEQ is the one that we need for Falcon Player to put onto our LED panel. So if I click on that, hit open, whoops, I have to make sure, whenever you click on it, it has to be light blue. Hit the open button at the bottom, and within a few seconds, you'll notice that it appears, well, first off at the bottom, it shows the full progress bar that it got uploaded. And then if you look in the middle of the screen, you'll see that it got put, in the sequence files category. And there it is. Now, how do we get our panel to actually play this animation so we can see it on the LED panel? Okay, the way Falcon Player works, we're not using Xites at this point. We just took our animation, we saved it as a file, and we uploaded that file right to the panel. So we don't need Xites anymore for what we're doing at this phase. So we have the animation saved in here, but the way the animations work on Falcon Player is you have to create a playlist. So Falcon Player can play a whole bunch of different animations. You can create lots of different animation files and Xites. And then if you put all those into a playlist, it'll play each of those animations in turn. Okay, so we only have one animation right now. That's this my first sequence.fseq. That's an animation. We have to create a playlist and put that animation in the playlist. And then when you tell Falcon Player play this playlist, it'll play that animation inside that was in that playlist. So it's a weird concept, but it makes sense once you start using it. So we have our animation saved into this already. Now we have to create a playlist. So if you go to Content Setup again, go down to Playlists. And just give it a minute. All right, so on this screen here, we have to give our playlist a name. So I'm going to call it My Playlist. You can call it anything you want. And again, if you stay away from spaces, it'll save you a lot of trouble. So after you type in a name for it, with no spaces, click on the Add button right next to it. Okay. And now I'm going to scroll down the screen just a little bit. So in the playlist details section, okay, there's the name of the playlist I created. And now we have to say what animations or what sequences we want to put inside of that playlist. You could have been in Xites and created 5 different animation files. And you can put all 5 of those, upload each of those 5 into Falcon Player, and then define those into to the playlist. So that's the name of my playlist. And then right here, where it says New Playlist Entry, it says Type, Media, and Sequence. This is assuming that you're doing Christmas lights and you're going to be putting an animation in that ties in with music. We're not doing that. We're not doing music. So instead of media and sequence right here, hit the down arrow, hit sequence only. Okay, and then right below it, it says sequence, and then it has the name of our sequence already picked for us. Because there's only one sequence uploaded to this, that's the only one we have to choose from, so it automatically picked it for us, which is kind of nice. So again, for the type, pick sequence only. For the sequence we're going to be adding to this playlist, make sure it's on the one that we uploaded. And then just hit the Add button right here. And you'll notice, down below on this multi-line area, you'll see right here, Type Sequence. Whoops, I just moved it. And then way over here it says My First Sequence. So basically, we added that animation to this playlist. So that playlist is only going to play just one animation right now. So after we've done that, we need to save all this. And I think you click on the Save button right here to save all this. Okay? So we've done it. We went to the first off, the first thing we did is we went to Content Setup File Manager. And this is where we uploaded that sequence file that we created in Xites. I did click it, but it's just taking a minute for it to process it. And now it's showing me that screen. So you might have that issue where once in a while your Raspberry Pi may break its Wi-Fi connection once in a while. But Windows 10 automatically reconnects to it and then automatically shows you the screen once everything's back to normal. So again, the first thing I did is I clicked on Content Setup File Manager to get to this screen right here. And then I hit, so I'm going to upload my animation into the Falcon player. I hit Select File, found my animation file that was on my computer and uploaded it into here. Then I had to create a playlist. So I went to Content Setup again, Playlist, and I created a new playlist right here. And then I clicked on, I picked my actual playlist or sequence right here to add into that playlist. So this screen is a little bit hard to understand, but again, if you just follow those steps, create a name for the playlist, right? And then you pick sequence only for this spot. You find the file that you uploaded and then hit add. Then that one animation down here will be added to that playlist you made. So now we can actually play this animation right now. So how do we start an animation in Falcon Player? Okay, if you go to the status control menu on the far left, up here, go to status page. This is like the home base to Falcon Player. So if you're where everything begins. So if I click on that, I see this screen right here. So again, status control, status page. So this is where all the action happens. So if I look right down in the middle of the screen, I see playlist, and there's that playlist I created. So if I want to start that playlist, I just make sure it's on, the one that I defined, which it already says it. I hit the play button down below. And if life is good, the LCD panel is now playing that FSAQ file that I uploaded to it. See, there's my bars. They're 5-second intervals. Notice that my flames are upside down. Okay, that's important to know. Okay, and notice that my text is upside down. Okay, so how do we fix that? Okay, so the animation file is playing, which is pretty awesome. But how do we actually get it right side up? Okay, and again, with your panel, if I look at the back, I have the cover not attached right now totally. Okay, but you notice that my battery is right here. So whenever you're sitting your panel vertically on the table, it's a good idea to make sure the battery is on the table part, so it's weighted so that it won't tip over. So it's on my panel. This is the bottom of my panel when I sit it on the floor, or on the table. So again, what did I do here? Okay. So if I put this back on here, okay. So, ooh, that wasn't good. Oh, why is it black? Okay, what happened to my animations? Okay. Well, you notice in X-Lights, originally I created a new sequence that was 60 seconds long. But as I was adding animations, I only added 5 seconds per effect. And I think the text effect was like 20 seconds. So I only made about 40 seconds of animation. So when you hit play on Falcon Player, it only plays that animation and then stops. Okay? So it actually played through the animation, then didn't repeat. You can actually tell it to repeat though. So right here, if I put a check mark under repeat, and then hit play again at the bottom, it'll play the animation like it should, and then when it's done, it'll play 40 seconds of animations I've created, effects. And then for 20 seconds to get to the minute, it'll have nothing because I didn't define anything. So you'll see black area for 20 seconds, and then it should repeat and play the animations all over again, and just keep repeating forever and ever. So let's just check that out real quick. This should be a 20-second animation, and you'll see on your status page, you can actually see in the middle right here it says elapsed time 35 seconds, remaining time 23 seconds. It tells you how far along, and then actually now we're on the dead place. It's still playing the animation, but we didn't define anything yet on that timeline. So that's kind of normal. So we've got 10 more seconds left. That's still playing that sequence. let it finish. And then it repeats, just like that. So that's good. So how do you stop this thing from playing? At the bottom here, okay, you have a stop gracefully button. I generally don't use that. I'm not going to explain it. But I'm going to just say stop now. And it's done. Okay, I won't play that animation at this point. Okay, so we made an animation in Xlights. We uploaded it to here. And then we created a playlist and stuck that animation in the playlist. Let's create another sequence, just for fun. So I'm going to go back into Xlights, and this is the sequence or the animation that I've made so far. Now, I guess we do have to worry about that text not being in the right orientation, right? The text was upside down. How do we fix that? Well, there's two ways. You can either, in Falcon Player, remember this is how we define the panel, you can tell Falcon Player to rotate its output so that everything's right side up. Or you can go into or you can define that right within Xlights. So let's try the Xlights approach first. Now the trick is, I don't know how to explain this properly, but if you fix the orientation of your display within Falcon Player, everything you send it in Xlights will automatically be rotated, okay, which is kind of nice. So the Falcon Player, if we fix the orientation here, that animation file that we uploaded to it will automatically flip itself because Falcon Player will say whatever I see, I'm going to flip. So this is probably the more efficient way to do it, but I'm not going to do it that way because I'm not that smart about it. So I don't know the options as well. But in Xlights, do you remember, if I go to the Layout tab, remember this is where we defined our virtual shape? We had this one option right here called Starting Location Bottom Right. Now again, if you don't see this property screen, suppose you just see this, right? I have to click on my shape before I can see all these options for it. So if I go to Starting Location, it says Bottom Right. Well, that means that the very first light starts right here. Okay, so that might be why it's showing things upside down and going from the wrong direction. So just for fun, I'm going to choose upper left as my starting point. So let's do that. Top left. Okay, my red save button came on, so that means I need to save these changes. Now, I saved it within Xlights to have a different starting location. The animation that I uploaded into this panel is still using the wrong starting location. So that file is now out of date. Okay, we have to upload, replace that animation file with a more up-to-date one that has the correct starting location. Pretty easy to do. All I do is I go back to my sequencer tab right here, where my animations, remember I defined my animations? I have to tell Xlights I want to generate a new animation file for this that has the correct starting location. So all I do is I just go to File, Save Sequence. I'm going to resave it. Okay? And then the files on the hard drive, those animation files, now have the correct starting location. But they're not uploaded into this yet. So we have to recopy it from the hard drive back onto the display. So again, I corrected, I went to Layout, I picked a different starting location, for a different corner here. I went to the Sequencer tab and I resaved my sequence. Just hit Save Sequence. So it generates a fresh animation file. So how do we get that animation file into our display? Pretty easy. We're back into our web browser. Remember where I uploaded my animation file? Content Setup, File Manager. Okay, there's the old animation with the incorrect starting location. I'm going to delete it with the delete button right over here. And then click on the blue Select Files button right here to re-upload it. And then here's my documents, the show folder, and then here's that my first sequence.fseq file. That's the new one. So I'm going to hit Open. It uploads it into the panel. Right? There it is. So how do I should already have a playlist defined, but I don't need to redefine the playlist. If I go to Content Setup, Playlists, Okay, here's the playlist I made, and it's already got that file already defined, so I don't need to mess with the playlist anymore. So how do I play my new animation? Status control menu, status page. This is the home page on your Falcon player where all the action happens. And then how do I play that playlist? Here's playlist right here, middle of the screen. Here's the playlist it wants to play. I just click on the play button. Okay, so all I have to do is re-upload the more up-to-date version of the FSEQ file. So it's playing the animation. It should get to the text pretty soon now. Flames are now oriented properly, which is cool. And there's my text. It's now going from right to left, and it's at the proper orientation. So now that we have that, the starting corner defined in Xlights properly, any animations that we create in Xlights at this point will be properly oriented. We don't have to mess with that anymore. It'll automatically work properly. Good deal? I'm going to stop it, but stop now. Now, let's try making another animation in Xlights, and we'll upload a second animation into our LED panel. Okay, I'm going back into Xlights, and here's the animation I've been working on so far. I want to create a brand new animation, so I'm going to File menu at the top, Close Sequence. That'll close down the one I've been working on. So now I'm going to add a fresh page here. Okay, and this is just a quick refresher. To create a new sequence, you click on the File menu, New Sequence. I always call it Animation. Always click 20 frames per second. And then the length defaults to 30 seconds. So if I go to the Info Media tab at the top, I'm going to make it, instead of 30 seconds down here under Sequence Duration, I'm going to make it 60 seconds like before. Hit Done in the lower right corner. Now I'm ready to start defining my effects. So let's try some different ones just to make it look different from the other one. In my effects bar at the top here, I'm going to pick that little tiny one called Circles. It's right below the green folder above it. And all I do is I hold down the button on it, drag the mouse onto my timeline, drop it, and you notice the little purple blurb here is real hard to see those left and right handles for stretching. So if I hold down the control key on the mouse and roll the mouse wheel, I think, there it is. I have to sort of scroll the left and right as I go. It's closer in, so I can actually drag this out to 5 seconds. Like that. Right now all my circles are white, but I can actually pick multiple colors. Make it more festive, right? Down below, here are the properties for that effect. I can have more circles. I can make them larger. I can make them move slower just by dragging those things, right? So that's kind of cool. That's one effect. Let me zoom out of my timeline. Okay, so let's add another effect. What's another fun one to do here? Let's try fan might be a good one. So here's the one fan. It's right below the painter's palette. I'm going to drag it onto the timeline. Stretch it out a little bit. And there it is. That's kind of cool. Nothing too fancy. I'm not going to change the defaults of it. I think it looks good enough for now. And let's add a couple more just to have some stuff. Let's try meteors, which is right here. Meteors. It's right below this light blue button. I'm going to drag it out, and that looks like falling rain right there. Okay? So I'm just going to make a simple animation, simple sequence with just these 3 animations in it. So how do I save the sequence? File menu, Save Sequence. And here's my first one with all the different effects I have in it. Let's call this one Second Sequence, right? Okay. Now, how do I upload that sequence into my LED panel? Okay, I'm going to go back to my web browser, and I go to Content Setup, File Manager. That's where you upload that FSEQ file into your LCD panel. Hit Select Files at the bottom left. find that animation file on your hard drive. So here's my documents folder, there's my Xlights show folder, and then there's my first sequence .fseq, and then here's second sequence.fseq. That's the one I want. So I click it, hit open. It's going to upload automatically. And now you'll see that I have two sequences or animations in my list here. Now your playlist needs to be updated to include both of those, because right now the playlist is only playing the first sequence. So go to Content Setup menu again, hit Playlists, and then if you scroll down, you'll see in the middle of the screen, here's the playlist I created. It's called My Playlist. And you notice down below in the lower right, this is the animation or the sequence file that playlist is playing. There's only one of them. So how do I add both animations for that playlist so I could play both of them? Okay, it should say your sequence name right here, or your playlist name right here. The type that we're going to be adding is sequence only. And then the sequence name, it currently shows my first sequence. Well, we already have that in our playlist. So if you hit the down arrow, you'll see both of them. So I'm going to click on second sequence. After I pick that, hit the add button. And you notice down here, it's showing both of your animations. So your playlist will play both of those animations now, one after the other in sequence. So make sure you hit the save button in the middle of the screen to save your work. Then it didn't say that it did anything, but it did. So if I want to now play my animations, go to Status Control, Status Page, and wait. Okay, make sure your playlist in the middle of the screen right here says My Playlist, because then we only have one playlist. All you do is hit the play button. So on your panel, you'll now notice right on the screen, it's currently playing My First Sequence.fseq. It's set, it's 8 or 9 seconds into it and has a minute yet to go before it's finished. When that animation is finished, it'll automatically start playing the second animation in order. So one playlist can have many, many animation files or many, many sequence files that you create in Xlights, and it'll play them all in order. So we're still on this first sequence. It's a minute. It's long. We'll just make sure it works. And that sequence is still running even though there's nothing on the screen, because we didn't fill up that whole 60 seconds with animations. So that's normal. So we've got 10 more seconds of it still playing that first sequence. And now it's playing the second sequence that we made. Pretty cool. And because I do not have the repeat option turned on right here, when it's finished playing the second sequence, it'll just stop. Okay, so I'm going to hit stop now just to let stop early. So we now know how to make an animation with that Xlights. We know how to, or they call them sequences. We know how to save that sequence within Xlights, and then we know how to upload that sequence file, that fseq file, into our LED panel, into Falcon Player, and after we upload that file, we associate it with a playlist, then we can play that playlist back, and it plays it on here. So once we have those sequences uploaded onto here, this panel is independent of Xlights and your laptop, so you can take it anywhere, and as soon as you turn it on, it will start playing your animations, sort of. We have to teach it that, because right now when you turn that on, it will not automatically start your playlist. It'll just wait for you to go into the web interface to start it manually. So we don't want to do that. We prefer to set this up so that it'll start playing your animations as soon as you turn it on. It's pretty easy to do. To do that, what we do is we're back onto our web interface, the Falcon Player interface. And what we're doing is setting up a schedule. So whenever this thing gets power, it'll play that schedule and start playing your playlist automatically. So to do that, we go to the Content Setup menu again, hit the Scheduler option in that menu. Okay, and here's the schedule screen, but there is no schedule yet. There's nothing defined here. So we're going to hit the add button. All right, and we're going to get a whole bunch of options here. So what we do to make this thing automatically start playing your animations when you power it on is we want to set the start date to January 1st of this year. So it currently says 2019 January. I think that will still work, so we're going to leave that the way it is. The end date should be end of December in the year of the future. So it already defaults to 2099. So that's okay. So we're going to leave both of those fields as defaults. It's important to make sure that enable column has a check mark in it, and it does by default. And then we tell what playlist we want it to automatically play. It's already set to the playlist I made, so that's good. We don't need so far we haven't needed to change anything. Days is every day. That's good. Start time is 0. End time is 24. This is military time. 0 hours to 24th hour. So believe it or not, as soon as we hit the add button, we didn't have to change anything on this line. Repeat means it will automatically repeat the playlist when it ends, so it just keeps going on forever. So as soon as we hit the add button, we saw all this stuff appear. We can take all the defaults the way they are. We still have to hit the save button right here to save this line. Okay? And you notice that my panel started playing these animations immediately. So if I would turn this panel off and then turn it back on, within a minute or so, it would just start playing your animations. Okay, I want to teach you something else here. In the earlier part of the training video, we did all the hardware wiring, and one of the things we wired up was this button right up here. Okay, that's the sequence change button. Okay, what that will do is, remember, we currently have one playlist on here that has 2 animations inside of that playlist. So normally when you turn this on, it'll start playing the first animation, and then when that's done, it'll play the second animation in that order. And then when the second animation's done, it'll loop back and play the first one again. So if you have a whole bunch of animations on here, suppose you have like 10 different animations, you would, in that 10 animations in one playlist, it would have to play them one at a time, you know. But if you press that button, it'll automatically skip to the next animation within that playlist. See? So I hit it. I'm on the second animation right now. If I don't want to wait for that to finish, I want to go to the next the sequence, you know, press it again. Now it will loop back to the first animation again. So this is just the button is a quick way to go to the next animation in your playlist without having to wait for it. So now we know that button works, which is nice.